Hello, everyone. My name is Al, the owner of Academic Composition. I'm here with Professor Troy Keith Preston, our senior writer who has been with us for over a decade. Keith, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been involved in the world of academia for about 40 years. I've done two rounds of undergrad, that was in the 80s and 90s. And then I did a couple of rounds of grad school in the late 90s, the 2000s. Since approximately the late 2000s, early 2010s, I've been an instructor as well. And I've also taught in multiple colleges and universities. I've taught in state public universities. I've taught in private universities. I've taught in community colleges, and I've taught in HBCUs. And I've also taught both live in-person classes as well as online classes. So I'm fairly well rounded in the academic field. My undergraduate degrees are in religion, history, and psychology. My graduate degrees are in sociology and history. I also did some graduate work in criminology as well, which overlaps with the other social sciences. And in this business, in the academic writing field industry, I've been involved in this industry for about 11 years now. I've worked with Alexi's company for about 10 of those years. Um, and during that time, I've literally produced thousands of essays and other assignments for our clients, and in a wide range of fields. I've done many assignments helping our clients complete their curriculum in business related fields, in public administration, in information technology, also obviously in the liberal arts, history, the social sciences, psychology, also healthcare fields like nursing, some of the natural sciences, for example, biology and some of those fields, geography, also criminal justice, law. So I'm very experienced in academic writing in a vast range of academic fields, and also at every level. I've worked with high school students, I've worked with undergrads, with graduate students, with doctoral students, with postdoc students, and also with students or clients who were not in an academic field, but seeking to do other type of professional writing, whether it was writing a book or writing content for their blogs or doing professional marketing or doing business reports for either their employer or for their own business. So I'm very versatile in terms of the kind of writing I can do, and I have experience in a range of other fields as well besides academia. I've been a human resources manager. I've been a marketing director. I've been a sales director. I've been in business management in different capacities. I've also been in broadcasting and a number of other fields. So I'm very familiar with a number of professional fields as well. And that has fortunately allowed me to become successful as a professional academic writer. And as I said, I've completed many different types of projects for our students. There are students out there today, former clients who are now PhDs because of the assistance that uh, we provided to them. There are people out there who've gone on to be successful in other fields, who've been able to move up in whether in the military or in law enforcement or in the civil service or in the business world in the private sector because of the help we've provided them. So uh, there are many things that we can do to assist our clients, like I said, at every level and in many different fields of study or endeavor.
Well, Keith, so that's quite the impressive resume, and that leaves the question of how you made this all happen. I imagine that your family is not rich. How did you pay for all such extensive education in the United States, of all places?
Yeah, well, as you can tell by my accent, I'm American by birth. I grew up in Virginia. My parents were of working class origins, although we were successful enough financially to be upper middle class most of the time that I was growing up. Uh, as far as college education, my K through 12, I went to a mixture of private and public schools. But as far as my higher education, I started off in the community college system. And I would highly recommend the community college system because it's cheaper than most other forms of higher education. There was no internet back then. We're talking 35 to 40 years ago. There was no internet back then. So I started off. So online education wasn't available, so I started off in community colleges. I did that for a while, and then I went to a public university where I qualified for in-state tuition as a resident of the state. And then I was able to pay for much of my education through Pell Grants. Pell Grants would often cover a substantial portion of my tuition payments, and what else wasn't covered through that, I would cover through student loans, either through private or federal student loans. And I was able to go through undergrad, like I said, 2 rounds of undergrad, 2 rounds of grad school, doing that while working. I pursued higher education as a student, off and on throughout parts of the 1980s, 1990s, and on into the 2000s. And by the time I fully finished graduate school, I was already in my 40s. So that has allowed me to provide a lot of assistance to non-traditional students. A lot of our clients are non-traditional students. That is, they're older students who are getting an education for the purpose of advancing in a career that they've already started. They're not necessarily just starting their higher education or just starting in their career. So I know what it is to be a conventional student of the quote unquote normal student age, but I know what it's like to be a non-traditional student as well. I know what it is to be in graduate school while also having a full-time job. So we're able to provide a lot of our students with assistance in that way as well, and not only in terms of being able to offer advice to students in terms of curriculum choices, not only in terms of how to best go about financing their education, but also just in terms of time management. One of the great services that we provide to our clients is many of our clients, because they are non-traditional students, they have full-time jobs, they have families, some are in the military and are deployed. Some are busy with very demanding careers like in law enforcement and other similar disciplines. So we help shoulder the burden of getting this advanced education that's often needed for advancement in a particular career. And like I said, we've helped people become chief of police through our assistance. We've helped people achieve higher ranks in the military or advance in the federal civil service system or advance in the healthcare field because of the assistance we provided for them. So our services have turned out to be very, very valuable to many, 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 many clients.
Well, as we all know, you are quite the popular professor at a community college. In fact, your ratings are exceptionally high. And I think one thing that explains your popularity with students is that you know what it's like to be one of them. You know what it's like to be an adult student or a non-traditional student while juggling professional obligations, family life, social life, and then somehow get on one degree after another just to keep up with credentials. Oh, do you think that's right, or is there something else that makes you such a colorful professor who's unforgettable to so many of your students?
Well, I think part of that is the fact that I am able to empathize with the students in their various situations. For example, whenever I teach some of the intro classes, like I teach undergrad classes in the social sciences, and that includes intro classes in fields like sociology. And whenever I start my classes at the beginning of the semester, I always tell my students, I've been exactly where you are. All right. At one time, I was sitting there where you are, taking this exact same class. This class was one of the first classes I took when I first became a college student, whether it's intro anthropology or intro criminology or intro sociology. So I've been there. All right. I've been in your position. There's very little, or if anything, you will experience in your academic experience that I have not experienced somewhere along the way. Also, with the older students, often they'll come to me and say, can I have a delay on one of my assignments because I have an emergency. My kid is in the hospital with appendicitis or something, and some instructors don't understand that. Some instructors or think of themselves as employers. They think that students are their employees, and all it matters is that the students come to work on time. My view is that no, I am the employee of the students. The students are my bosses. All right, they are paying me to provide a service for them, which is higher education. So that means I need to make sure that the customer is always right. That is whatever is going to be most beneficial to the customer is the approach that I take to higher education. Now that doesn't mean that I do not believe in high standards when it comes to education. Obviously, whether it's in academic writing and with academic composition, or whether it's in teaching or in any other field, I am very much in favor of high standards and reaching excellence, and that's what I strive for in everything that I do in these various fields. But at the same time, we do have to recognize that the client has needs, the customer has needs, the student has needs. And that's why I've always tried to view myself as an employee of the student, not an employer of the student. And that's the attitude that I bring to academic composition as well. Our customers are always right.
In addition to being a popular professor, you are a distinguished author, and much of your political philosophy centers on the idea of freedom. And that this lines up well with how you don't see yourself as the overlord of the students. In fact, you see them more or less as colleagues, or in some cases even as superiors. Though it seems to me, though, that with your style of discourse, with the style of education that you offer, it's a better fit that you're one of them, that you've lived their life, and that you're there to help, which is why you often address them on a first name basis, and you absolutely abhor formal titles, although you have plenty of them. And this makes me wonder, is this the segue to how you became an associate of academic composition? That's quite the libertarian business notion, that where there really are no directors, there is no strict hierarchy, there are no bosses. It's just that we're all here trying to get ahead in life in a manner that's mutually beneficial. Tell us a little bit about your political philosophy and how that led you to discover academic composition.
Well, my approach to politics and social philosophy, is significant because, as I said, I am a social scientist. I've published about half a dozen books on topics related to the social sciences, the political sciences, history, and other fields in which I have some credentials or experience. And I've probably written, hundreds of published essays over the years. And like many academics, I go to academic conferences as a presenter and things like that. But I do take a somewhat different approach than many academics because I do have something of an anti-institutional bias. And that is, I tend to be skeptical of institutional authority. Many academics, even to this day, continue to think of the world of academia like it's the church or something, like it's sacred, like they're there doing theology, right? And that's not my approach. Like I said, my approach is that it's client centered, it's student centered, it's customer centered. The customer is always right. I am an employee of the student. And in that sense, I have a more egalitarian or more libertarian approach to education. For example, as a professor, I give my students a great deal of leeway in terms of what kind of assignments they do. I mean, obviously, they have to do with assignments. There are expectations. It is higher education. But I give students a great deal of leeway in terms of picking topics for research papers, in terms of a particular model of assignment they want to create, whether they want to do a group project, whether they want to do an individual project, whether they want to do an essay, whether they want to do some kind of display or something of that nature. And that fits well with the academic composition business model. The academic composition business model is very uh, modern. It's very revolutionary. It's very innovative in the sense that it's not a traditional business model, like a corporation where you've got the CEO and you've got a bunch of people who come to work at 8 and leave at 5 and go on vacation for 2 weeks every summer and it's just about trying to squeeze as much money out of customers as possible. That's not how we do things. We take a much more modern, much more progressive, much more egalitarian, much more libertarian approach to our business model. Our business model works as a partnership where managers, writers, and customers are all partners trying to achieve a mutual end, which is to help everyone involved be successful, win-win. Right? We want management to be successful. We want employees and staff members and partners to be successful. Obviously, we want clients and customers to be successful. Every successful customer, every successful client, every client that goes on to get a degree, whether it's a high school diploma, an undergrad degree, a professional certificate, a master's degree, a PhD, right? Every customer is a sign that we have succeeded as a business, because that's our business model. The customer's success is our success. If our customers don't succeed, that means we're not succeeding, right? So our motivation, our incentive is to make sure that our customers, our clients, are as successful in their academic endeavors or any other services we provide for them as they can possibly be, because that's a reflection on us. The more successful our clients are, the more successful we are, and the more successful we're perceived as being.
And the metaphor you've used before in this matter is that as a professor, you are a coach of sorts, that their success is a reflection of your success. And that also seems to fit the model of the many academic conferences and academic circles that you frequent, where the point of everybody's participation is to raise the standard of discourse, to advocate for a vigorous exchange of ideas. Tell us a little bit about the show that brought you to academic composition. I believe it was called The Stark Truth. Gosh, a whole decade ago, 2014, is how you found this.
Yeah, I initially met Alec through a talk radio show called The Stark Truth, which is still out there. I'm not sure if it's still called that, but that particular host, Robert Stark, still does internet and radio broadcasting and does interviews with a lot of very interesting people from all over the place in terms of culture, politics, the arts, and things like that. And Alec was a guest on his program about 10 years ago. And as a listener to Robert's program, in fact, I'd actually been on Robert's program a number of times by that point, and have been back on his program a few times since. In fact, once just recently. Through listening to Robert's program, I heard Alec being interviewed and just explaining his business model at his company. And at that point, I already had about a year experience as a professional academic writer. So I contacted Alec through his company's website and began working with academic composition as a writer, eventually became a full-time writer. And that's what I've been doing for the last 10 years.
Yeah, so we've come quite a way. I started in 2009, and you've become our pivotal player at academic composition a decade ago. And it seems that you've certainly lived up to your values of an open-ended discourse, academic rigor, and of course, creating a win-win situation. It's been a pleasure to have you on board with this channel, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you, everybody.